It gives me great honor to introduce to you our lunchtime plenary speaker, Diane Yentel, who is the President and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Diane is the President and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, a membership organization dedicated solely to achieving social, just public policy that ensures people with the lowest incomes in the United States have affordable and decent homes. Diane is a veteran affordable housing policy expert and advocates with nearly 2 decades of work on affordable housing and community development issues. Before rejoining NLIHC, where she previously worked as a policy analyst, Diane was Vice President of the Public Policy and Government Affairs at Enterprise Community Partners, where she led federal, state, and local policy, research, and advocacy programs. Prior to Enterprise, Diane was the Director of the Public Housing Management and Occupancy Division of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, where she managed a team overseeing the development and implementation of nationwide public housing policies, procedures, and guidelines. She also worked to advance affordable housing policies with Oxfam America and Development Peace Corps volunteer in Zambia. Diane is frequently cited in media outlets including the Washington Post, the New York Times, Mother Jones, NPR, and The Guardian. She serves on the board of directors of the National Housing Conference, Homes for America, and the Coalition on Human Needs. Diane has a master's in social work from the University of Texas at Austin. Welcome, Diane Yentel.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today. I'm just here to give a few minutes of remarks to recognize today being the first day of Our Homes, Our Voices National Housing Week of Action. So I'm thrilled to be here today to kick off the Week of Action and to do it during such a critical time for our housing movement and for our country. It's such a unique moment. And it's a moment where, at the very same time, we have extraordinary challenges and exhilarating possibilities. And you all know the challenges very well. You live and breathe them every day. You're working under some of the most challenging conditions with overwhelming demand and dwindling resources. Almost every day, low-income people and the safety net that serves only some of them are threatened. The administration has proposed deep cuts to critical housing programs and cruel policies to increase homelessness. You know these challenges. The housing crisis is growing. Homelessness is increasing in some communities. Our country's public housing infrastructure is crumbling. And the longest government shutdown in history threatened tens of thousands of renters and did real long-term damage to critical housing programs. And yet, despite these extraordinary challenges, I've never felt so hopeful and so certain that we will achieve big change together, because in fact we already are. Despite it all, or maybe because of it all, we've accomplished so much together. Thanks to your partnership and your powerful advocacy, together we achieved at this time last year a 10% increase to HUD's budget, something we haven't seen since the foreclosure crisis. And a 10% increase on its own is impressive. But when we consider that we started the process with the administration proposing 15% cuts to the budget, and we ended it with a 10% increase, it really puts that achievement into perspective. And when we talk about budgets, we often talk about numbers and we talk about percentages. But if we talk about people instead, that budget increase, thanks to your advocacy, means 50,000 low-income people with disabilities, veterans, and youth experiencing homelessness will have new housing vouchers. Because of your advocacy, an additional 30,000 people experiencing homelessness will have homes, thanks to increases in HUD's McKinney-Vento program. Because of you, 1,000 new homes for poor seniors will be built with the first new funding for Section 202 housing construction in 8 years. And these kind of increases don't happen on their own. They happen through effective advocacy and partnering with congressional champions and through activities like our National Housing Week of Action. So 2 years ago, we held the first Our Homes, Our Voices National Housing Week of Action. That year, we had organizations, organizers, resident leaders from across the country host about 60 events, rallies, press conferences, letter writing campaigns to let their members of Congress know the importance of affordable homes. During last year's Our Homes, Our Voices Week of Action, we doubled our impact. We had 120 events in 65 communities. Over 90 members of Congress participated. So this year's Week of Action starts today. And together with all of you and partners across the country, we'll continue to urge Congress to make a bold and sustained commitment to ensure that everyone has a safe, accessible, and affordable home. Events like these and your work throughout the year to educate the public and policymakers about the crisis is having an impact. We're breaking through and elevating the conversation in the national dialogue in powerful ways. And together we've changed the conversation about what's possible to achieve. We've been working closely with members of Congress who are suddenly and increasingly willing to work not just around the edges of the housing crisis, but to advance bold solutions and to recognize the investment necessary to solve it. The size and the scope of these bills are truly unlike any that we've seen in generations. And it's just in time for the 2020 presidential election. And after decades of chronic underinvestment by Congress, it's remarkable that presidential hopefuls are now using their platforms to elevate the housing crisis for the lowest income people and the solutions. In part because of the severity of the crisis itself, and in part because of our collective work to create pressure for solutions, in these early months of the presidential campaign, we've already seen more attention on affordable housing and solutions than we have in entire presidential campaigns in history. It's truly remarkable. So it's an extraordinary moment. It's one filled with tremendous challenge and exhilarating possibility. We have local and federal momentum together with a national spotlight that gives us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build broad-based, bipartisan support and enact transformative solutions. And that's exactly what we'll do through events like these and like others at the National Housing Week of Action. We can end homelessness and housing poverty. We have the data, the solutions. As a country, certainly we have the resources. We lack only the political will to fund those solutions at the scale necessary. And through our collective work, we're building the will, and policymakers are taking up the charge. So I want to thank all of you and thousands more of our partners across the country for your work. I want to thank you for your belief and your certainty that change is possible, for your unwillingness to accept homelessness and housing poverty as unchangeable or unsolvable. And I want to thank you all for your advocacy now and in the years to come. It's never been more important. Thank you.